Hello, listeners. We're going to talk about a nice little indie game here because we don't always cover the big games. We like to cover the smaller games because there are always gems out there. So, Nick, hello. We're going to talk about a game called Forma.8, and it looks pretty cool, and the music in the trailer sounds amazing. It looks sort of like something I'd like to play, but obviously you have played it, so why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's a little Metroidvania style game, and you are a probe that is sort of jettisoned out of a ship that's orbiting a planet. Down onto the planet, and something goes wrong during that mission, that launch, and you end up sort of stranded. You have an accident during the course of being fired down into the planet, and you wake up alone, and you kind of have to solve the mysteries of the planet and find a way out of where you are, really. As I say, it's a Metroidvania style game, so there's lots of backtracking, and you pick up a power up early on that helps you to it's like a little shield that you pulse to get rid of any enemies that come near you. And yeah, it's utterly gorgeous. Visually it's just a beautiful game. Just really clever use of light and dark to give sort of depth to the world, and like lovely collage style backgrounds. It's utterly beautiful.
So what are some of the dangers you face in it? Because there's some weird stuff happening in the trailer. So are there like obstacles? Is it a little like Limbo in the kind of enemy sense, or do you have guns, or do you have weaponry to fight them?
You're a probe, so you're fairly innocuous little thing, really, little round probe that sort of glides about everywhere. As I say, you have a shield that you can pulse, which will, push enemies away from you. And if you pulse it, maybe hit them 2 or 3 times with the pulse, you can kill them. And then ultimately later on, you get other powers, like you get a little bomb that you can plant, and then you can use your shield pulse to like send it off as a projectile. So your arsenal's pretty limited, to be honest. And I would say that the focus isn't actually on combat, it's more on exploration.
Awesome.
There's lots of flora and fauna which kind of attacks you, but for me their behaviour was more that they were just a bit curious about what you are, so they kind of come and have a look, but unfortunately they damage you. It's that kind of relationship with the enemies, if you get what I mean. They're not aggressive in any way. It seems like more that they're just inquisitive. But they do damage you, and if you get hit by one, you lose some energy. You can replenish that energy by sort of moving around the map. There's little dots, white dots, that you can go and collect. And also if you kill a creature, or you kill a plant, once it dies, it also releases some of these orbs of energy that you can use to replenish. The main challenge, as I say, isn't necessarily in the combat. The challenge is more in the environment itself, because your movement is momentum based. So you push on the left stick and you'll move, and you can take your finger or thumb off the stick, and you'll continue to move until your sort of momentum is finished and you stop. So a lot of the challenge in the game is around that movement. Like there's a lot of timed puzzles, and there's one particular area where you're actually having to move very quickly through like tight and twisty and turny passages away from something that is chasing you. So the challenge is trying to manage that momentum that you have to help you maneuver around. It's quite tricky in places, and it's a frustrating game in places because of that movement. There's a couple of puzzles where you actually use your little probe to move items around on the map. So it's a case of, like pulsing it with your shield and then nudging it a little bit. And of course you're a round ball trying to move something, and you're constantly moving up and down the object. So there are some frustrating elements in it. And also in my review I talked a little bit about how the game communicates what it wants you to do. There isn't a lot of information at all. Like I say, you crash land and you sort of wake up and you float about and you find another probe that is unfortunately gone, and that's where you get your first power up. But there's absolutely zero storytelling. There's no guide at all. There's no sort of hints coming up. The only hint that you get is when you pick up this first power up, it just tells you which button on the controller it's assigned to, and that's it. And if you press R1 or L1, I can't remember which one it is, on the PlayStation 4 controller, it will bring up a menu which will tell you, how many items you found or whatever. But even that menu in itself, it's just a load of symbols and numbers, and that's quite difficult to pass. When you first sort of look at it, you go, I don't actually know what any of this means. So it's quite a mysterious game. There's lots of little areas that you stumble across and you're like, well, I don't really understand what this area is. Is this a separate area to where I'm having to, to where I need to go? Or do you understand what I mean? It's a very strange game in that sense, in that there is a very interesting pull to get you to explore further. And it's not just about, okay, right, I've got this power up, which means I can now unlock this area, I'll go here and go get that. It's not just about that. There's sort of areas off the beaten track that you kind of stumble upon, and they've got like a puzzle to them, like a cryptic puzzle to them, and you look at it and you go, well, nothing that I've gained so far helps me solve this puzzle. I don't really understand what this area is. Like there's a bit where you go back to an area in the dark, and I still don't really understand why I've gone back to it in the dark. And it's just a very intriguing game. I enjoyed it very much.
Cool. Well, I mean, pretty much covered everything there, Nick. So I mean, if you wanna read the review, guys, head over to GodIsAGeek.com to read Nick's full review for Forma.8. Or you can just rewatch this and rewatch this and rewatch this and find out anything you need to know. Anyway, thank you very much, Nick, for joining me, and we will speak to you all later.
Yes,
thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.